Good evening, everyone, and a good morning to everyone calling in from India. I'm Raju Rajagopal of Hindus for Human Rights. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to tonight's Desh-Videsh Conversations, Speaking Across the Divide. The topic for tonight is the state of Uttar Pradesh, the state as in capitalized state or small state. Either way, that's what the topic is. Ground zero for ending a secular India? Question mark. Tonight, our guests will bring you a sense of the ground reality for the minority communities in Uttar Pradesh, especially, which, besides religious minorities, now includes human rights activists who are ironically in the front line of defending religious freedom, even when they themselves do not identify with any particular religion. Many of them are in jail today for the resistance to an authoritarian government, both centrally and locally. We'll also hear about the continuing tightening of safe spaces for Muslims in UP and the ever worsening situation for press freedoms all across India. This is the sixth in the Desh-Videsh conversations, with the earlier ones focusing on the CAA, manufacturing statelessness, UAPA, curbing terrorism or stifling dissent, and caste reservations. Have reservations about reservations and untold stories from Kashmir. Uh, we have two excellent panelists tonight, but before I introduce them, a few housekeeping items. If you are on Zoom, you may type in your question at any time by clicking Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Please keep your question short to the topic, and please address it to a specific panelist. Also, please no commentaries or personal comments. If our panelist chooses to respond to your question in writing, everyone will be able to see their response. Now, after our guests have spoken, we will take up the remaining questions one by one and seek a response from the panelists. For those of you in the room here, we have index cards down below and pencils. If it's easier, rather than passing the microphone around, if you could write your question when it occurs to you and just pass it around and pass it forward, we'll take it from there. We'll not be able to use the chat feature in this webinar. At the end of the session, there is a quick survey to seek your feedback about how this particular webinar went and suggestions for future such webinars. Friends, without further ado, let me introduce our guests for tonight. Dr. Sandeep Pandey needs no formal introduction to many of us in the Bay Area. But for those who may not be aware of the spread of his work in India, he is a scholar, academic, educationist, and social activist, and is associated with the Social Party India. He co-founded ASHA for Education while doing his doctoral degree at UC Berkeley. He has taught as a visiting professor at IIM, Bangalore, Ahmedabad, IIT, Kanpur, Gandhinagar, BHU, etc. He is an indefatigable proponent of peace between India and Pakistan. When everyone else gives up on an issue, you can count on Sandeep to keep at that issue for as long as it takes. Now, over the years, he's also been active in the RTI movement, the Right to Information movement, and has become something of a thorn on the side of the ruling dispensation, particularly in his home state. He's also been a recipient of the Ramon Magsaysay Award, often termed the Asian Nobel Prize, in 2002 in the Emergent Leadership category. One anecdote that I remember when we invited Sandeep for the first time as part of Indians for Collective Action, he arrived at the airport and people were waiting outside for a long, long time. And he was being grilled left and right by the authorities because they had received an anonymous complaint that a communist or a Naxalite was going to land to create havoc in the United States. Terrorists, they call it. The story he tells is very interesting. They gave him, who are you going to meet? What are you going to talk about? And nothing was convincing until they looked at a video of a protest against Coke. It was an anti-Coke movement. In US, he had been invited to speak. And when the officer saw that, say, "Oh, that's what you're doing. Oh, that's cool," and let him go after that. Uh, but he's not had any problem since then in coming to the US. But the letters about accusing him of all kinds of things continue to be trolled. We are also glad to have Shahira Naim from Lucknow, who is joining us uh, at very early hours of the morning there. Thank you, Shahira ji, for being with us. She is a veteran journalist. After years of active journalism in Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, and Bihar, along with involvement with organizations working against gender-based discrimination and violence, reproductive health, and rights of Dalits and other minorities, Shahira sees all these issues as interlinked. She will talk today as a witness to the continuing shrinking of the safe space for the minorities in Uttar Pradesh and also the shrinking press freedoms under the current regime in Uttar Pradesh. Her recent article on a 40-year-old Moradabad riots, which the Adityanath government wants to bring back to play in the 2024 election, is reopening to weaponize against Muslims, and it gives us a window to some of the communal strategies in UP. When Shahira ji asked me what she should be talking about, I said it's wide open. The topic is the situation in Uttar Pradesh, and please free to talk about what comes to your heart. Shahira ji, welcome. After Sandeep ji finishes his comments, you may take over the mic at that time. And after the two of you are finished, we'll go to Q&A.
We can have Shahira ji go first.
Okay.
Yeah, so that I will cover whatever is not covered by her then.
Is that okay, Shahira ji? You are muted.
अपना mic on कीजिए, mic.
Hello.
हाँ.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
I can't hear you people very clearly. It's again not very clear.
नहीं, आपकी आवाज आ रही है.
आप लोगों की नहीं पहुंच रही है, लेकिन बहुत हल्के से पहुंच रही है.
अरे तो सुनना तो हम लोगों को है ना. आप बोलिए.
नहीं तो how will I answer your queries when I can't listen to you?
जब क्वेश्चन पूछा जाएगा तब वो टाइप कर देंगे.
Two-way communication होना चाहिए.
नहीं,
This is what we are protesting in India all about.
Right.
It's not a
That is true.
two-way communication.
You are right. हाँ, लेकिन आप बोल दीजिए, उसके बाद अगर क्वेश्चन सुनाई नहीं पड़ेगा तो वो हम लोग टाइप कर देंगे यहाँ से.
ठीक है. So thank you, Raju ji and Hindus for Human Rights for inviting me. I'm very grateful. The topic also is something which I write about every day. So I may kind of meander a little bit here and there because from one thought I go to another, and I'm not a good speaker. Let me tell you, I can write much better than I speak, but still I will try my best to be as lucid and as possible. What I want to say is, I've been working out of UP for the last almost 25 years as a journalist, and we have seen. I have also been working in the previous two BJP governments of Kalyan Singh and Rajnath Singh, and as well as we had Ram Prakash in middle for a couple of months. But this 2017 BJP government is not like anything we had ever witnessed in UP. In a way, I would say it's a trendsetter across the country also, in terms of undermining the constitution, not believing in anything which the constitution upholds. And let me go, I can go on, but I will just stick mainly to the minority rights when I speak about violation of the constitution. See, Muslims in UP are 19% of the population. We have had a census for almost a decade now. It's due, but the midterm kind of assessment says that we have a population of Muslims in UP is around 19%, which is almost or more than the population of Poland and Morocco. You know, the total population of Morocco and Poland is less than the population of Muslims in UP. So you can get an idea of the size of Muslim living in UP, and you simply can't ignore them. You can't brush them under the carpet. So this is what this government seems to be doing, ignoring it. And virtually every district in UP has a sizable Muslim population. And certain districts in Western UP have more than 50%, like Rampur and Muradabad. And Shamli, Sambal, Saharanpur, Amroha, Bijnor, these are Western UP districts which have populations from, say, 40 to 50 or even beyond 50%. These are official figures. This is something which the government admits. And in 143 Vidhan Sabha constituencies, Muslims have a decisive role to play, meaning their population is between 35 to 50% in 73%, 73 constituencies of the total 403. So I'm just trying to draw a picture of what is the size of the Muslim population and what is in contrast, where do they stand today? Elected representation is at its lowest today. There are only 34 Muslim MLAs in UP, while in 73 districts they are very, very strong. And out of this, not a single BJP MLA. BJP has not fielded a single MP or MLA ever since 2014. They don't believe in giving them any representation anywhere. So, but still, out of these 34 who have been elected and are in the assembly today, the elected representation is being undermined in the sense that the government is arresting them and putting FIRs against them in all sorts of false cases. To elaborate, I'll just take the case study of Muhammad Azam Khan. He is an eminent Muslim leader of UP. He's one of the founder members of the Samajwadi Party. He has been a cabinet minister throughout Mulayam Singh's and Akhilesh's reign. And in Rampur, he had been the elected MLA for 9 terms, and he set up a university in the name of Muhammad Ali Johar, one of the Khilafat movement leaders. He is very, he doesn't mince words when he criticizes his opponents, and that has been his failing, because as soon after Yogi came to power, he started lodging cases against Muhammad Azam Khan for all sorts of things, like stealing cattle, stealing electricity, uh, uh, not paying his power bill, and things like that. Today, there are 90 cases against Azam Khan, and in for which he also spent 2.5 years behind bars. And not only Azam Khan, his entire family. His son has been implicated in several cases. His wife has been implicated in cases. They were all put behind bars. And after spending 2.5 years in jail, he was out on bail. And recently, a couple of months ago, he was again, an old case came out, and it was said that in a hate speech, he was given punishment for 3 years, and he was disqualified from the assembly. So he had to leave his assembly seat, and there was a bypoll, and he was even disenfranchised which is something unusual. A person, even a criminal has a right to vote. Criminals are allowed to vote inside the jail, but he was disenfranchised for a hate speech, and he was not allowed to vote. There was a bypoll, and in the bypoll, Muslim areas were barricaded. They were not allowed to vote. Only a place which always saw very high voting percentages saw as low as 33%, because the Muslims and the supporters of Samajwadi Party were not allowed to reach the polling booths. As a result of very low polling, around 33%, the BJP won in Rampur for the first time since independence. Since independence, no right-wing party had ever won elections in Rampur. This unprecedented thing happened, and to add to Azam Khan's troubles, uh, he challenged this in the High Court, and recently, last week, he won the case in the High Court because the complainant said that he was made to lodge a complaint against Azam Khan by the government under pressure. So there was actually no hate speech, which was so bad, but he was made to lodge a complaint, and on the basis of that complaint, this gentleman was disqualified. He lost his voting right. His in a bypoll, the BJP came to power, and today, when this has been challenged and he's been acquitted of all the challenges, how will he get back to the assembly? Because there's been a bypoll and the new person has come. So this is just to give you idea of how a strong person who was a voice of the Samajwadi Party and was looked upon by the Muslim community has been completely reduced to dust. He himself used these words. I have been reduced to dust. He is not the only person. In a similar fashion, many of these elected MLAs who are sitting MLAs have are in jail or have cases against them. Old cases have been pulled out. Their families have been put behind bar. Azam Khan's son has also been disqualified, and there's been a bypoll. Another BJP person has won. Similarly, in Kanpur, a sitting MLA, an MLA for not one, thrice, he and his brother have been arrested and put behind bars because their tenant said that he was harassing them. And in Mau, Mukhtar Ansari, who used to be a Muslim and later became a politician, and now is on the wrong side of the law because this government is not patronizing him. His entire family is behind bars. His son, who had nothing to do with the politics, but because of the father being behind bars, he contested his seat, and now he is also behind bars because the government, the police had called him for some kind of interrogation, and then he was arrested. His wife had come to meet him in the jail, so they're saying that it was a violation of a jail manual, so she's also been arrested. So Mukhtar Ansari's wife is shown to be absconding. And in Kerala, a place where in the 2022 elections, Amit Shah started his campaign from Kerala, which is a place in western UP. And still, in spite of a very high-profile campaign, the Samajwadi leader managed to win. So the the government has imposed a gangster thing on him. He was behind bars for 9 months, more than 9 months. He's out on bail now, and the charges was that he disrupted traffic. For that, he was put behind gangster. And why did he disrupt traffic? Because the government, district administration had decided that there would be no hawkers inside the city. They were given a space way outside the city where they could sell their whatever wares they were selling. So he, being the local MLA, he protested. He said they have a right to livelihood. Why have they been thrown out of the city? They should be allowed to, work inside the city. These were theri walas and people selling things on their carts and all. So for that protest, for organizing that protest in which there was a traffic jam, there was a gangster act on him and he was put behind bars. So these are the people who represent the Muslim minority or the people of their area. When they are being targeted, they are being by the government, they are being targeted, they are being put behind bars, their properties are being confiscated. So you can well imagine some of them, Atiq, for instance, Atiq Ahmed and his brother, these were two muscle men who became politicians, and they became members of the lower house as well as in parliament, as long as it suited their political bosses. Now the Yogi government has suddenly decided that they don't serve any political purpose because they've got their own muscle men, and now they have been being targeted. Atiq Ahmed was, and his brother was killed in cold blood outside the hospital where he was being taken for a medical checkup before the court hearing, which was on the next day. And Atiq Ahmed had filed an application in the Supreme Court saying that he has a fear that he will be killed during his court appearances. The Supreme Court asked the state government to give him further security. In spite of all this, he was, as he had predicted, he was killed before his hearing in front of the media, and the media recorded it, how somebody came and just pulled the trigger, and he and his brother, both of them were under police custody, and they were handcuffed. They couldn't even run. They were handcuffed together, the two brothers. So when one fell, the other could not even make any effort to run away. So both of them died in front of the media. Everything was recorded by the media cameras and shown across. So this happened, and just 3 days ago, Mohammed Yusuf, so when they see that their leaders are in such a helpless situation, they feel very frustrated. So the spaces of protesting is shrinking. Now nobody wants to, the people are really scared to come out and protest because they see that the leaders who took up their causes for them were implicated in cases as silly as traffic jam and violating section 144, and they have been put behind bars, and they are facing so many criminal cases. Old cases have been dug up and revived of land encroachment and things like that. So this makes Muslims in UP very scared to come out on the streets to protest. Whether the protests which happened during the citizenship Anti-Citizenship Act, also they were not completely Muslim protests. Hindus and liberals and everybody, the secular people were protesting against these laws, but largely the Muslims have been targeted. Some activists have also been targeted, but among the common people, the highest number of cases are against the Muslims across the state. Around 1,246 have been arrested and 5,558 have been detained. And of the 23 people who died during these protests, except for 3, all were Muslims. All were Muslims. And after that, the state government first promulgated an ordinance and then brought out an act, which is called the Uttar Pradesh Recovery of Damages to Public and Private Property Act 2020. Under this act, anybody participating in bands, hartals, protests of any kind, and indulging in any activity which has damaged public property can be, their property can be demolished, or they have to pay compensation, basically. And there's no judicial review in this act. So the first case of 86 persons has happened in Bijnor district, where 86 Muslims have to pay 4,27,000 as penalty for various acts of protests in the district during the CA and RC movement. Similarly, in Lucknow, which had one of the most successful sit-ins, which started even before the Shaheen Bagh in Lucknow in the clock tower area, 100 women. There were lots of women, but these 100 are mostly Muslims. They have received notices for violation of Section 144 and for, again, causing traffic jam, which is a huge problem for this government. Nothing else is more they're concerned than the smooth running of traffic, and for disruption of peace. Following which, we have found that Muslim women participation in peaceful protests of various kinds has really gone down. They do not want to come out because they have already received notices. Their families are under threat. The police says that they have recordings of their CCTV camera has recorded them, and this sword is hanging over their heads. So not much has happened beyond the notices, but it is enough to prevent them from further participation in democratic and peaceful protests, or for various sorts of gatherings for solidarity of across board. It's not only Muslim, but when we always have protests when there any other issue, whether it being the harassment of wrestlers in Delhi or the farmers or whatever. So these women, their participation has gone down after that, Muslim women, because they have been targeted in the and we cannot force them, because it's a very real problem which they are facing over there. Similarly, when this BJP spokesperson made this remark against the Prophet, Nupur Sharma, a BJP spokesman, made some offensive remarks against the Prophet during one of her TV interactions, for which there was widespread protest across India and as well as in UP. And there was an even more severe attack by the police across board, in the sense that for the first time, bulldozers were used to demolish the houses of the protesters. This is the beginning of the bulldozer culture in UP, where there was no, even before the guilt of the protesters could be established, going to court as a preventive measure to stop further protest, the houses of the so-called masterminds of these protests were demolished and razed to the ground. When they were some kind of protest by the civil rights activists, even the court did not take much notice about under which rule these houses were demolished. Then the administration said that they were illegal. they were built on encroached land. But till then, till these protests happened, no action had been taken, or no notices had been given for these illegal, so-called illegal houses. So in a way, the administration is using all sorts of arm twisting methods to prevent Muslims from participating in any peaceful protests, uh, be it against the Prophet's remarks, which we saw in Kanpur. And this culture, the bulldozer culture, has become so popular that now there are so many what we call Hindutva pop songs praising the bulldozer. And the bulldozer culture, yogi, it became a symbol during the 2020 this assembly election. Um, Even when he went to address rallies in Bangalore, he carried a bulldozer. So bulldozer and the yogi is now synonymous, bulldozer culture. And it is a symbol of the crushing of the democratic rights of the Muslims in UP. So
Shahira
I
ji,
can't hear you at all.
Shahira ji, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we've been hearing you very well. I just wanted to give you a time check. If you could wrap it up in a couple of
Okay.
minutes, then we'll move on to.
Okay, fine, fine. So I will just now just try to wind up. So broadly speaking, we can put the whole problem of omission and commission. The omissions, the commissions are these fake cases against Muslim leaders and Muslim opinion makers. They're they're being disqualified from the assembly and reduced to they're being disenfranchised. Then the omission is not taking any action against so many cases of harassment of Muslims. The Hindutva pop, which is going on and is so popular, against the Muslims, asking Muslims to go to Pakistan, or praising Yogi for the bulldozer culture. So all this is not considered hate speech. Azam Khan can be disqualified for hate speech during an election campaign when everybody speaks goes out of control. He can be disqualified, but the same government will not take action against so many people making hate speeches on the social media or through the songs and things like that. So as a result, what we see is that the Muslims have been pushed to a corner. They are they have virtually been they don't want to participate in the mainstream struggle, popular movements where they were so active and part of. Because they have been targeted, because their leaders have been targeted, they are they have gone to a corner. Similarly, the media, whoever writes about this, whoever is taking up people's causes, is being targeted, put behind bars. Cases have been put on them. People reported COVID cases of how it was showing the government in a bad light, put them behind, for various kinds of fake cases. So in a similar fashion, the media also stopped writing. Nobody wants to take chances and be in behind bars when there's no when the law is working against them. The law is being twisted all the time. So I hope I have been able to give overview of what is happening in UP today, and why the minorities are so scared and not coming out in protest. Or if they are coming, they're coming in very small numbers. Thank you, and I'm open to questions if there are any.
Shahira ji, what we will do is we'll have Sandeep ji make his remarks, and then we will take questions for either of you. Of course, I think we all wonder how you as a journalist are able to function in these such difficult circumstances in Uttar Pradesh. So I'm sure that'll be one of the questions that we'll ask you. So I'll prepare you for it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Over to
Thank you.
Sandeep.
हेलो हेलो, आप कुछ कह रही थी आखिरी में शेरा जी?
जी नहीं, मैं बस वही आवाज अगर मैं सुन पाती आपकी तो मैं भी सुन लेती।
हाँ हाँ, अभी सुनाई पड़ रहा है कि नहीं?
नहीं, बहुत वेरी वीक। I can hardly hear you.
मेरे कंप्यूटर का माइक वो ऑफ किया गया है स्पीकर, और वो मैं राजू जी के कंप्यूटर से मेरी आवाज आप तक पहुंचेगी। चलिए मैं इनके और थोड़ा पास बैठ जाता हूँ। So I will. It is good that Shahira Naim ji spoke first because
1 minute. Is it too loud? Or?
Mic, you might be able to adjust the volume. Have you tried?
Yeah.
No, not here. Yes, settings. There should be a mic setting here somewhere. नहीं, कंप्यूटर की नहीं, उसकी Zoom की input mic level. That should improve it at least a little bit.
Give us a minute, please.
There we go.
Were people able to hear Shahira ji from the back?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, please bring Sandeep ji to
Go ahead. Yeah.
Why is her picture now? Okay, now it's. So जी सुनाई पड़ रहा है ना?
I can. जी बिल्कुल आप सुनाई पड़ रहा है।
So it is good that Shahira Naim ji spoke first, because I think she has given a very good idea of what the Muslims are going through in Uttar Pradesh, because of which the idea of secularism is in danger, which is the topic for the session today. I will just like to fill in some more details. So Yogi Adityanath is probably the first, although we know that BJP and RSS would like the concept of secularism to be removed from the constitution, but he is probably the first major politician in India who is on record saying that secularism is dangerous. He has said that. He has said that secularism is dangerous because it is an obstacle to establishing the Indian tradition, by which obviously he means the Hindu tradition, at a world stage. So it is preventing, India to highlight the importance of the Hindu culture and tradition. He, by his actions, you can see that he is obviously not a very secular person. Can I use that mic? Because I think the battery here is gone. Yeah. So there are cases against him before he became the chief minister for inciting violence, arson. He has been arrested, and we should all remember that this, supposedly a strong man of Hindutva politics has actually wept in the parliament, once, and that is when he was arrested, and he had cried in the parliament saying that his life was in danger. And now he is using bulldozers, to demolish houses of political opponents. So the first very blatant, communal act was the suspension of Dr. Kafil Khan from Gorakhpur Medical College 63 children had died because of Japanese encephalitis, and no other doctor, was attending. He was the only one who came, and in spite of messages having been sent to other doctors, senior doctors, he came. He spent money from his pocket to buy more cylinders, and this is before COVID time. There was shortage of cylinders, and he spent money. He has written an entire book on this episode, and you will see how he was trying to procure cylinders so that he could keep the children alive. And he was punished for that because he got some good coverage in the media, and this was not acceptable to Yogi because his religious mutt is very close to this medical college. And he thought that this Muslim doctor was taking credit for saving lives, and he didn't want that. And so Siddiq Kapan was not only suspended, cases were filed against him. He was put behind bars. The official committee of the Uttar Pradesh medical department acquitted him of any of the charges which were leveled against him. But in spite of that, so another committee was formed to look into it. So he was not reinstated, and then he would offer his services wherever he thought they could be used, in Bihar, in Kerala. Finally, he was booked under another case because he gave a speech in Aligarh Muslim University during the anti-CAA protest, and he was booked for inciting people, and an stringent National Security Act was invoked to put him behind bars. And when the case came up for his bail in Allahabad High Court, the judges said this speech is very nationalist. He is sounding like a very nationalist person. Why there's nothing in it which can incite any hatred or violence, and he was given a bail. But the fact is that he cannot live and work in Uttar Pradesh, and therefore he has left. It is a loss for Uttar Pradesh. Such a good doctor, dedicated, he had to leave Uttar Pradesh just because Mr. Yogi Adityanath did not like him. Another example is Siddiq Kapan, the journalist from Kerala who came to cover the Hathras rape incident. The girl ultimately died after a gang rape. He had not reached the spot. He was arrested. He was shown to have some connection with PFI, and which is described as a terrorist organization by the government. But the funny fact is that there is a political party associated with it called SDPI, which contests elections, and they have corporators in Karnataka. So they are not banning the political party, but they are putting this organization in a bad light. And so Siddiq Kapan was shown to have some affiliation with this, and he was put behind bars on the charges that he was going to write an explosive story. It was not yet written. It was assumed that what he will write will incite people, and therefore he was put inside jail. And when it was time to take his bail, because he was in UP, so they needed 2 people from Uttar Pradesh. Actually, there were 2 cases, so they needed 4 people. And finally, there were people who came forward, including a former vice chancellor of Lucknow University, now over 80 years, Professor Ruprekha Verma, and others. Journalists Association provided some, people who, took bail. And finally, he is out, but that is after 2 years. Shahira ji has already mentioned the UP Recovery of Damages to Public and Private Property Act. So anybody involved in any violence now will be arrested, and the cost will be recovered. And she has said, but let me point out the major anomaly with this act is that the process of recovery starts even before your crime or guilt is proved. So the amount was recovered from a number of people. My party colleague, the Socialist Party president at that time, Advocate Muhammad Shoaib, was sent to jail for a month. And there were notices served on him to deposit certain amount which was very high, and some lakhs of rupees. And the question that we were asking, and that is what the court ultimately said, the higher court, that only at a stage when the case has been filed and the case has not even been heard, the guilt has not been proved, how can you extract money from people? So the punishment is being given even before the guilt has been proved. So that was again this act was essentially to terrorize people who participated in the anti-CAA movement. And then this tactics has been used by BJP, and again and again. There was this Agnivir scheme, 4 years of employment in army. So youth were protesting all over the place, from Bihar to Andhra Pradesh. And ultimately, there was a lot of violence, train coaches were burned, and ultimately they used the same method. They said anybody found protesting will be ineligible to apply, when the time comes, for making the formal application for employment in army. So this is how that protest was also crushed. They brought in the Prohibition of Unlawful Conversion of Religion Act. This was to target what is called love jihad, and love jihad of a very special kind, where the man is Muslim and the woman is Hindu. So there is this myth propagated by RSS that these Muslim men are taking away Hindu women and converting them. And recently, when the Seattle the local body passed a legislation against caste discrimination, an article appeared in Indian Express where Mr. Ram Madhav, an RSS ideologue, questions how big is caste discrimination in United States that you have to make a law in Seattle. The same question can be asked with respect to this act. I mean, how big is love jihad a problem? When the Yogi government itself tried to investigate in Kanpur, out of 22 police stations, they found just 14 cases of Hindu-Muslim marriages of the kind they were looking for. And in those, they could register FIR only in 8. And that FIR was also registered by somebody not out of the 2 who were involved, but somebody outside, some family member, or so that is a problem with this act, that it is not just the party who's involved, but even parents or some relatives can also file an FIR. So Cow Slaughter Prevention Act, cow slaughter was banned. There was a punishment of 2 years in jail earlier, but now the act has been made more stringent. But the real change that the Yogi Adityanath government has brought about is it has stopped all the bovine market. So, and because of the mob lynching incidents where piece of meat was found in a man's refrigerator in Dadri, and this man is killed by lynching. Several such incidents, the sale and purchase of cow has stopped totally. As a result, what has happened is all this bovine, which is not of use to the farmers, the old cows, the bulls and the male calves are now roaming around, and the oxes, of course, they are moving around and eating away the crops of farmers. This problem arose as soon as Mr. Yogi Adityanath became the chief minister, because I was invited by several heads of the village councils, the pradhans as they are called in Sitapur district, and we had to take up this issue as a campaign, because this is one problem which is affecting the farmers most at this time. They have to keep awake to save their crops. Otherwise, they'll be just eaten away by these cattle. So there's a leaflet on this campaign that we are running at this time, and no other party is willing to raise this issue, because anybody trying to say that these cattle should not be roaming around automatically implies that you are for slaughter. So we unofficially say that, of course, that is the only method. Unless you open up the bovine markets, the farmers will be in trouble. But formally, the campaign is that if Mr. Yogi Adityanath does not want cow slaughter, then he should put all these cattle in cow shelters. But it's impossible to put these cattle in cow shelters because the numbers are huge. Just to give you an idea, my work area next to the Lucknow district in Hardoi, there is one tehsil in which there are only 2 shelters, which have a capacity of keeping 250 to 300 cows. And a tehsil has several blocks, and each block has about 50 villages. And in one village alone, you will find 500 to 1,000 cattle roaming around freely. So you can just imagine the magnitude of the problem. But, this is an issue, this is an emotional issue for the Hindus, and they have been using it to the hilt to get their votes, so farmers, even though they suffer, they have to keep awake to save their crops. They are being, hurt in various ways. They have to put these very dangerous barbed wire with blades, and people get hurt, people and cattle. And so those wires are actually banned by the UP government. They are so dangerous. But in spite of all this, for some reason, people have been voting for this party. So this is a very important issue for the farmers, and a problem is specifically created by the Yogi government. In addition to the 23 youth who were killed in the anti-CAA protest, and what is important to note, everybody remembers how women came out on the streets to protest, right? The reason for women coming out, because this was something very unusual, Muslim women coming out, in veils and burqas and protesting. This happened essentially because these 23 youth were killed in Uttar Pradesh, and campuses of Jamia Millia and Aligarh Muslim University were raided, and there was virtual police attack. I met a student at AMU who lost a limb. So it was because of this severe repression that the government used against this act, against the demonstrations against the act, CAA Act, that ultimately when people realized that it would be very difficult to protest because the government was using the police to kill the youth, that the women realized that they had no option but to come out. And that is when all these women came out. In addition to these 23 youth who were killed in Uttar Pradesh in this movement, 185 individuals have been killed in so-called encounter deaths. So encounter is where police will directly kill so-called criminal. You have arrested somebody on some charge, and even before their crime is proved, you kill them. And very unfortunately, this kind of action, resonates with the supporters of BJP. I would say not just with supporters of BJP. Even during Anna Hazare's movement, I have seen how they would use the rhetoric that any corrupt person, any corrupt officer should be just hanged. Anna Hazare used to say that, and people would clap. Now this is very serious, because how can you give punishment to a person even before the crime is proved? So this is where, for common people who have no understanding of law, you can still pardon them, but We have a chief minister who says openly that I will kill the criminals.
Yeah.
Yes. So he doesn't distinguish between the role of legislature, executive, and judiciary. He says that thok do is the phrase he will use, that we will kill the criminals. He has said in a public meeting that anybody getting involved in love jihad, which means any Muslim man trying to marry a Hindu woman, their Ram Nam Satya Yatra will be taken out, which is, an euphemism for saying they will be killed. So, uh, so this is a person who openly calls for killing of people. He can't even distinguish between the role of executive and judicial. So this is the problem. And on a lighter note, if converting your religion to marry is a crime, then the first people who should be booked are Dharmendra and Hema Malini, right? Yes, yes. There are two of them. So and Hema Malini is a member of parliament from Mathura, and Dharmendra was a member of parliament of BJP. And when he comes to campaign for Hema Malini, he is officially described as Hema Malini's husband, right? And a Hindu can't have Hindu can't have two wives. So it is just because his first wife doesn't complain that he is get to have, he gets to have two wives and is officially, described as the husband. But the fact is that they converted to Islam to marry, because as a Hindu, he could not have married the second time. So anyway, that is where I will close. And yeah, if there are any questions or clarifications, I and Shahira ji will be happy. And you're also free to make any comments that you would like on what we have said. Yeah.
Where does the Samajwadi Party stand as a major opposition in the state? How this is happening?
Yeah.
We don't see them or doing anything. Where do they stand in the state?
So the question is, where do the Samajwadi Party stand? आप बोलेंगी शहीरा जी इसके ऊपर? समाजवादी पार्टी?
Yes. I will like to say that the Samajwadi Party is also taken the easy way out. They have not come out very strongly for the Muslims during all sorts of issues which they have been facing since 2017. Because now the general perception is that everybody is virtually competing for the Hindutva thing. Some are hard, some are softer, but nobody is completely secular as we understood So Akhilesh will only stick to Twitter to criticize the various acts of commission of this government against Muslims. They oppress the bulldozer, but and supporting, expressing solidarity, that has not been as expected or as the Muslims were hoping. But still, the Muslims did not have any other choice. So that is why in the 2022 assembly elections, they were very strongly supported the Samajwadi and RLD alliance, the Rashtriya Lokdal alliance, and they became they did not win, but they got a sizable and respectable seats of 111, while earlier they had been reduced to 40. If Akhilesh would have, or his party would have continued to show their solidarity for the secular, the undermining of the secular spaces, I think it could have been better. And now I think things have become even more difficult because in the urban local elections, which have just concluded last month, we have two more players. We have AAP and we have Owaisi's party entering the electoral arena of Uttar Pradesh in a very kind of disturbing kind of thing, because in the All India Muslim uh, AIMIM has now 75 councillors in UP, and they have five Nagar Panchayat chairmen. So they have entered in a big way. But why is it troublesome? Because they are virtually the B party of BJP. Because in a lot of seats, wherever they have contested, the number of votes which their candidate managed to collect was just the amount where just the number of votes the SP was running short. For instance, I'll give you in Bijnor, the SP in one place got 95,000 votes, and the Oasis party got 3,000 votes, and BJP won by 1,445 votes. So if AIM would not have been in the picture, probably the Samajwadi Party had and RLD would have won. So this similar thing has happened in places after places. And in Meerut, where OSC did very well, was because the Samajwadi Party had their internal problems and they could not decide on a consensus candidate, and there was a lot of confusion. And OSC managed to take advantage of this and has done very well in Meerut. Uh, AAP has also entered the picture. So now the minorities will not strictly stick to Akhilesh as an alternative. Whoever will give a more better alternative, or promise some kind of support for democratic, the Muslims will support them. I think is a very good place in the coming in 2020. AAP has already the party a viable alternative in various states of UP of the country. So Akhilesh has reason to worry and not remain complacent if he wants to keep his major electoral support with him. Have I answered your query?
Yes.
Yeah, I will just add something to it. See, the Samajwadi Party is the main challenger to BJP, and the way some BJP has been able to come around that is, so let me take this question also. Yeah, so there's a question from Tariq Faruqi. Instead of using the examples of gangsters, please address the incarceration of student leaders who are behind bars without bail. Also, how deep is this hatred? Do they have the support of majority of Hindus? Why so? Is there a silent majority that is against communal hatred? Where do we go from here? So, Faruqi Saab, we have not talked about the students because today we are talking only about UP and most of the students are from Delhi actually. But let me tell you, it is not just happening to Muslim students. It is, I mean, there are 12 intellectuals behind bar under UAPA in the Bhima Koregaon case. Not one of them is a Muslim. 4 intellectuals have been killed in broad daylight just because they believed in ideologies which questioned the Hindutva or the RSS ideology. I mean, everybody remembers Narendra Bolkar and Govind Pansare, Gauri Lankesh and M.M. Kalburgi. So religious minorities, Dalits, women, look at how the women wrestlers are, being harassed by the government and the police. No justice for them. And anybody who disagrees with them. Everybody is an enemy for BJP RSS. So, but so far as the support is concerned, so there, my friend, Mr. M.G. Dev Saham, who's a retired IAS officer from Tamil Nadu, he has written an article that in the last Lok Sabha elections, BJP got only 39% of votes, of the polled votes, which is actually about 25% of the registered voters. So if you look at it, not more than a quarter of the people are supporting BJP. But the way they are able to win elections is exactly what Shahira ji was describing, that they are able to divide the opposition votes. And this is what they have been able to do in UP. They have used Bahujan Samaj Party, and now probably they are using these other two parties which have been mentioned by Shahira, that they are able to divide the opposition votes, and that is how they are able to win the elections. And Akhilesh, it has been a failure, because he has not been able to bring all the opposition votes together. In the last Vidhan Sabha elections in Uttar Pradesh, had the Bahujan Samaj Party leader Mayawati been able to get the Dalits to support the Samajwadi Party instead of the BJP, the results would have been very different. But in the last elections, it is a known fact that Dalits voted for BJP, and even Muslims, 8% Muslims have voted for BJP. BJP is now pursuing the Pasmanda Muslims and also the Sufis, for their support. So the dynamic, so this whole thing is very dynamic. This equation of voters, and the way BJP has been able to manage it is by getting all the non-Yadav OBC castes and the non-Jatav SC castes on their side by getting their leaders in their party. So somehow they have been able to work out the arithmetic and divide the opposition votes. So this is the game that they are playing, and Samajwadi Party is not being, too effective in this game. They have been sidelined. Shahira ji wants to say something. Yeah.
Just can I? Yeah, I just the student leader question.
Yeah.
If I can mention a fact of Aligarh University, I had gone there after the protests. In fact, I had gone before the protest started in Lucknow. I also met all the injured students in the hospital and spoke to as many teachers. And in fact, Irfan Habib gave a wonderful interview. But I could not meet the vice chancellor because he refused to meet the media. The PRO, all the officials who were taking the decisions refused to meet the media. And I will tell you the way it was handled, the Aligarh protests. First time the police was allowed inside the campus, the students were, Jamia was bad, Aligarh was no less. And the vice chancellor has been rewarded for the way he handled the student process, because he has just been made an MLC by the BJP government. He resigned from the post of vice chancellor of Aligarh University. He has become the first Muslim to become an MLC in the UP State Assembly by the BJP government. So that will partly, answer why action was not taken in Aligarh against the people who damaged property inside the campus, the outsiders who came, who injured the protesters, because the vice chancellor was partial. The vice chancellor was biased. He was working as the stooge of the elected government and local administration, and he's been rewarded for it. So it's very easy to see two and two together. So I just wanted to point this out.
Okay.
People.
Yeah. Shobha.
So, Yogi Adityanath is a rising star with everything, right? And there are other BJP chief ministers who are trying to use the same tactics in their respective states.
Yeah.
So, it's working for them. What is the incentive to change? There doesn't seem to be much dissent. So, is this going to just continue? Is there no hope? It feels like a hopeless kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, are there any more questions? So we can take some questions and then answer them collectively.
Not working?
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think my question is about thank you. The question is about my name is Shyam Shankaran. The question is about whether the elections are being conducted in a fair manner. Because the Lakhimpur Keri incident, all the 8 seats of that particular Lakhimpur Keri BJP won. So whether that farmer moving incident had any impact is what the rest of the world was watching, but there was no impact. So again, I think it's in a normal world. I think such an incident should have created some dent.
Yeah.
At least in few constituencies, it didn't happen. So I think it's going back to the same area of EVM rigging and what has been happening for long. So just wanted to understand your perspective locally being accurate here.
Could you repeat the question for the Zoom audience?
Yeah, so
Got it, right? No, I'm just actually adding to his question. Looks like it's everywhere it's rigged.
yeah, so the question is how fair are the elections? From Shan, right? Yeah, any other questions? Yeah, Anuradha ji, yeah.
I have 2 questions. Why is it that, talking about elections, why is it that secular parties in the opposition are unable to get their act together and understand the emergence, the pressing challenge of the times? These are not normal times like they were about 10 years ago. As India is, there's a democratic backsliding. And why is it that they are unable to understand that? Number 2, about love jihad narrative. How has the propaganda film Kerala Story impacted this further in Uttar Pradesh?
Can I quickly make a comment?
Yeah.
Wow. One minute. For those on Zoom, we are hearing questions from
So
the.
it's like this program is for Hindus for human rights, right? Do you guys just talk about Hindus, human rights all over the world? Or just about like politics in India? Are you guys like talking about human rights for Hindus? Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I will watch it out on
No,
YouTube, but
I will answer that. Yeah, I will answer that. Yeah.
Can I quickly make?
Yeah.
population, right, in our neighboring countries reduced from like 15% to 1%. The Hindu girls are being taken away, forcibly married, right? Have you guys talked about that? Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Kashmir.
Yeah.
What's the website? I can go and look it up.
Could you give me a second, sir? I heard your question. For those on Zoom, we have some questions. We have questions from the audience that I'm sure you're not able to hear. Sandeep ji will
Actually, you know that.
could you
Yeah,
please?
yeah. Please.
Sandeep ji will summarize the questions before he answers so that the Zoom audience is also able to hear what the question was. So I just wanted to let you all know that. Yeah. Okay. Can you pass on? We've heard your question. Can you please pass on the mic to somebody else? Thank you.
Yeah.
So let me answer the last person's question.
You want to begin with
No,
that?
you go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so the question is whether this politics is going to change, see, I would say, philosophically, that hate is not a normal thing, right? Hate, anger, all these negative things. So I always believe that this would not carry on for a very long time, but it is sustaining. But I have already mentioned that only about a quarter of people in India support this kind of politics. Their core supporters are even less. I think what is happening is there is manipulation of elections, the question that was asked. But it is not just EVM. I mean, there are friends like MG Dev Sahayam who say that EVMs should be banned and we should go back to, the ballot paper. There are people who are suggesting some intermediate solutions, that the voting should be actually manually done by stamping a paper, and then it should be swiped so that you can have the advantage of electronic voting machine of fast counting. But because it is true that we get to see the VVPAT slip, but we don't get a copy of that. So, and they don't count all the VVPATs. But I would say that it is not just manipulation of EVMs, because had it been, then how would BJP have been defeated in Karnataka, right? They have been able to manipulate the elections wherever they have been in power. And it used to happen when ballot boxes were there. So I have an experience which I would like to share with you. They are able to manipulate elections only when they have a sympathetic bureaucracy. So you need a sympathetic bureaucracy to manipulate the EVMs. It doesn't happen remotely, I think. And the experience that I would like to narrate is in the farmers issue that, we have been campaigning in Uttar Pradesh. So for past 3 years, I have been moving with villagers, with cattle, and saying that we are now going to tie them to Yogi's place and he will feed them. And the police will come, and sometimes we end up in the police station, sometimes the cattle are taken away. So our movement had picked up before the Vidhan Sabha elections. There were 3 such instances, where we were confronted by the administration in Hardoi district, and a case was filed against 20 of my colleagues. The candidate of the Socialist Party was being asked to appear every second day before the magistrate so that he would not be able to campaign. After the elections, when I went to see my superintendent of police of that district, that was my first meeting with him. He is an upper caste person. He tells me that, we got really worried because of your campaign. We thought it would have some adverse impact on the elections. And I was shocked that this man in his official uniform in the SP office is saying that the campaign could have an adverse impact on the elections. And then he says that now the election results are out, and fortunately the government has been formed. So you should. So he was trying to advise me that, I should talk to the people and the government. I said, but this government is different. You could talk to people in Mayawati's government, to the bureaucrats, to the politicians in the Samajwadi Party government, to the Manmohan Singh's government. There have been, examples where we protested against the amendments in the RTI Act, which Manmohan Singh was proposing 8 amendments to weaken the act, and the proposal was withdrawn after we protested. So we have been able to influence the bad decisions of the governments in the past, but it's very difficult in this government because they don't talk to you. They just one day decide they have to do something and they will impose it on the people. So he said, no, you should talk to, and he even pointed out the name of a minister with whom I'm friendly because he used to be with the Bahujan Samaj Party earlier, Mr. Brijesh Pathak. He's the deputy chief minister now. So I was thinking that if this man is talking like this today, saying that your movement could have an adverse impact and fortunately the government has been formed, what would have been his role during the polling day when the elections were taking place? Right? So it is people like him who have been helping BJP win, the upper caste, in the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy is dominated by upper caste. That is the core supporters, Why are the secular parties not coming together? Because of, you understand it very well, because if Samajwadi Party and Congress will come together, and they have come together once earlier, Samajwadi Party and Bahujan Samaj Party came together. But the problem is when they contest the elections directly, there is a bargain, right? Each of the party wants larger number of seats. So the outcome of the results have been such that except for once, maybe when Mulayam Singh and Kashi Ram contested together and they formed the government. But then, Samajwadi Party did something, very bad, because of which they fell apart. So each of the party is threatened by the other, that they will lose their political space in that state. I mean, they are essentially competitors, right? Vying for the same space. So this is the reason they have not been able to come together, I think. But I will say that since Mamata Banerjee's few ministers have gone to jail, since Manish Sisodia has gone to jail, now I think there is a serious realization among all the parties that if they don't come together, and if the BJP comes back to power again, then nobody knows what will happen. Because 2025 is 100 years of completion of RSS, and there's a big danger that the constitution may be changed. So from what we read in the newspapers and from what we heard from Rahul Gandhi, apparently the talks about alliance are in advanced stages. Nitish Kumar is saying this, Satyapal Malik is saying this, the former governor of Jammu and Kashmir, who has now turned against BJP. They are saying that there has to be only one strong opposition candidate. Obviously, there will be smaller parties who will put up candidates, but there should be only one opposition candidate against a BJP candidate of all the major opposition parties, political parties. And so this may not happen all over the country, but I think this will happen in some states. In Bihar, for example, it will happen very easily. In Karnataka, it will happen. In Maharashtra, it will happen. Most of the India, the only exceptions will be Uttar Pradesh, where Mayawati will probably not come on board. Gujarat is a different story altogether. So except for few states, I think the opposition parties may come together, the secular parties, and we may have some kind of surprise in the next election. We hope. The Kerala story, I don't think has any added kind of advantage for BJP, because at least it didn't show in the Karnataka elections. So, but I guess every such incident does, strengthen the political positions further. So that kind of deterioration of the polity happens, whenever something like that is brought up. Yeah. Huh? Yes. Shahira ji, bataiye.
Yeah. I would just like to add about the Kerala story. The Yogi Adityanath government had a cabinet meeting, after which the entire cabinet saw this movie, and he made a statement of how it shows the true picture of what is happening, and how he was the pioneer who took a step against this kind of thing. All this happened. But the other part of the story is that when he campaigned in Karnataka, Yogi Adityanath is now a star campaigner for the BJP. Wherever he goes, he uses this rabid language of hatred. But in Karnataka, wherever he campaigned, he could not bring a single seat for the BJP. So the bulldozer did not work there. So that is, I would like to say, that is something very, very positive, that this thing is not working outside the way it was expected to work, the divisive thing. But as I would also like to address the question about Khiri going to BJP after the Khiri minister attacking the farmers and all that. But that is not the only exception. I'll like to take go a little back. The demonetization. There was such widespread protests, popular people against the demonetization, the way it impacted Uttar Pradesh. But then it had no impact on the 2017 elections. Similarly, the handling of the COVID, it was the worst
almost one of the worst in the country in UP. If you remember the visuals of shallow graves and all that appeared in the international media everywhere. But it had no impact on the election results. Uh, and today Yogi says he handled the COVID very well. And the cattle campaign was very popular across the state. We thought it is a people were emotionally involved with the issue, but it seemed to have no impact on the election results. So we see that the popular sentiments and the election has no correlation, which for me as a journalist is very surprising. And when we probe a little deeper, what works is the RSS hatred against the Muslims. And that they have managed to play up after 2014 in the villages everywhere. This painting of the Muslim as the othering of the Muslims over the years has now, kind of caught on to the extent that they say, okay, as long as Muslims are being uh, punished, we will suffer all these things. This people have even articulated in so many words. But if you are so unhappy, why are you voting for him? But this government is putting the Muslims where no other government did it. So if hatred has divisiveness, that is just a change of government will change things or not. Because things in UP at least, I am sure that things are not as bad anywhere else. But the RSS game plan has largely succeeded in UP because they have penetrated right to the village level, and these things are happening. People they have rigged the minds. They don't have to rig the EVMs any longer. The minds have been rigged before they go to vote. They have set their things, and then wherever they are trying to do something for change, what we saw in the Rampur pattern, the Rampur model, where people are not allowed to vote. Before they vote, they can't vote. So if this is going to emerge, it has also been witnessed in the local elections. So then things are very not so good for UP.
Thank you. Thank you, Shahiraji. We are 7:33. We're 3 minutes over. But I would like to answer a question from a gentleman who has joined us about human rights of all people. Let me just say this. Could you please, if you,
I'm just giving the background that,
if you, I'm trying to answer your question. If you insist on continuing to talk, we'll kindly ask you to leave the room. But I'm trying to answer your question, which I understood. Human rights is not a zero-sum game. Human rights anywhere are to be condemned. But we are from India. We are Indian Americans living in the US. So our primary concern is what is happening in our country that we love, a country, a pluralistic, secular country that we all came from. So this meeting is dedicated to talking about the human rights, specifically in Uttar Pradesh. Do we care about what's happening to Hindu minorities in Bangladesh? Of course we do. Go take a look at Hindus for Human Rights website to see what we have said, what we have done in the case of human rights of Hindus in Bangladesh and Christians as well. Take a look at the website, see what we have said every time there's been an incident in Pakistan directed against Hindus or Sikh temples. So come informed before you criticize. Please understand what is happening. Everybody, there are human rights violations all over the world that we could spend time on. But be clear that we are here as Indian Americans, as people of Indian origin, who are extremely concerned about what's happening. In India, we are equally concerned about democracy in this country. And we are also participating, many of us, in making sure this country doesn't go backwards in its commitment to human rights. So thank you. Can I add to that? And a word of thanks to Sandeep Pandey and Dr. Shahira ji. Thank you so much for staying on and answering the question, but I will have Sandeep ji have the last word. And there is some tea and I think samosas which came an hour too late, but please feel free to help yourself and maybe continue the conversations. Sandeep ji.
Sandeep, I have one suggestion.
Yeah. Please, please.
You're talking about stray cow roaming around.
Yeah, yeah.
Problem, and a lot of parties are not talking about it.
Yeah.
I have a fun on it, like instead of campaigning them open a slaughterhouse or move it to a cow shelter, ask BJP party or Yogi to export it to states where they campaign and sell beef. It's part of their manifesto. Goa is looking for some politics. They send the cows there. All they have to do is arrange the transportation.
Yeah.
BJP guys will take care.
So this is the question we asked, that Gau is a Mata only in UP. It is not in Goa and Nagaland and Northeast. So anyway, so I would also like to answer your question as an activist. See, as an activist, we always stand with the oppressed. Any person, any community whose rights are being, compromised. So we fight for the rights of not just religious minorities, the Dalits, the women. I have personally gone and supported these women who are sitting on protest at Jantar Mantar. Now they have been removed, and I've extended the support of my party. Now, what would you say to that? Women wrestlers, Olympic medal winning, players are sitting on protest, and there is this Musselman who's a member of parliament, from BJP, the chief of the wrestling federation, and no action being taken against him. And the government runs a campaign of Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao. The Prime Minister in his Independence Day speech says that we have to change the way, we look at women. Now I'm having doubt on what he actually meant by that. I mean, because the 11 rapists and murderers were released after his statement. And these women, 11, the 7 wrestlers who have filed a case against the BJP MP, they are not getting justice. So from such individual cases, Irom Sharmila was sitting on fast for 16 years. We have gone and supported her. I myself went and fasted for 5 days in her support. She sat for 16 years against the Armed Forces of Special Powers Act, because you should know what happened in Manipur. A girl called Manorma was kidnapped and raped by the Indian Army. And a protest like nowhere in the world has taken place in Imphal, where 2 to 3 dozen women naked protested with a banner saying, Indian Army rape us. Have you seen this kind of protest anywhere in the world? So we go and support, people whenever their rights are suppressed. We are supporting the lost cause of Tibet. We say that India's solution to China problem is liberation of Tibet. Who talks about the right of Tibetans today? People talk about Palestine. David is sitting here with his Palestine t-shirt. But Tibet, they are fighting. 185 Tibetan youth have self-immolated themselves, have died. I have seen one of them with my eyes in Jantar Mantar. He poured kerosene over him because some Chinese dignitary was visiting India, and he put himself on fire. 185 Tibetans have given up their lives. We are fighting for their cause. So anywhere in the world, from India to wherever, we support all kinds of causes where anybody's rights are being suppressed. And I am very happy that Hindus for Human Rights was mentioned by Ashia Wahab in her speech in the California Senate, when the law against caste discrimination was passed with a vote 34:1. So thank you so much. So anyway, now this is good. Thank you, everyone. So one question that I wanted to.
Because of what you said or something, right? I'm done with it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have actually read enough. I think when the name was mentioned, right? Your name, you said
Sandeep Pandey.
Sandeep Pandey.
Yeah.
So yeah, I recollected some of the material that I had read about.
Yeah.
And the causes that you typically pick up, right? You are in your right to pick up whatever causes, right? My perspective, being so many years here in the US, has also changed, right? How I look at India and the Indian politics, right?
So now I can actually see the difference, how we work, right? In the US and there. So.
Okay, we can continue this conversation. I mean, you
Have some
I will
chai.
be, I will be, I will be,
Right, I have no.
I will be very happy to correspond with you. My email is ashaashram@yahoo.com. Please send me a mail. We will take this conversation forward. I wanted to answer this last question where somebody has asked, BJP is the richest party in the world. So it can use its muscle to divide the opposition. We will always have Muslim quislings and some Hindu extremists. Where does our hope lie? How will things improve? So I wanted to say that in Karnataka, the Congress was able to win because even though BJP must have spent many more times money than Congress, because the bureaucracy did not support it and did not manipulate the EVMs this time. And people were fed up. So in spite of the money power, and to give you some figures, 10 lakh crores of loans taken from banks have been written off by declaring them as non-performing assets. And 10,000 crore of rupees has been given as electoral donations in the form of electoral bonds. And both these systems are opaque. So the finance minister says that the RBI doesn't tell us which companies are borrowing from which banks. The banks don't tell us the names. And electoral bonds are out of the purview of RTI. So we never know which company is donating to which party. So there is a situation, where a party can take money from bank, even though if it is in losses, because that rule has been changed. Even a loss-making company can now donate to a political party. Earlier, it was only 7% of your last 3 years average profit. And everybody knows that Mr. Ambani has declared himself, as bankrupt, one of his companies. And on the other hand, you have this money being donated through an opaque system. Mr. Modi travels in Adani's aircraft. The day he went to take oath as Prime Minister, he has traveled in an Adani aircraft as Chief Minister of Gujarat, doesn't even hide it. So a lot of money power, but ultimately, people in India have shown they have defeated the autocrat Indira Gandhi in spite of, people without spending any money on campaigns. And it has happened in Karnataka, and we hope that it will happen again nationally. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming here. Thank you, everyone who logged on to Zoom. Most people stayed throughout. Thank you. And if you leave Zoom, there is before you leave Zoom, there is a small questionnaire, feedback questionnaire for us. We would appreciate if you could complete that. And we have the form in printed form here in the room. It'll be very helpful for us to get some feedback from you, especially on some of the future topics for Desh-Videsh. Thank you all, and help yourself to chai and samosa, and see you at the next Desh-Videsh conversation. Good night.